The most dangerous moment with a narcissistic person is not when they are angry at you. It is when they realize you are no longer afraid of losing them. Because the moment they understand that your silence is stronger than their manipulation, they may attempt one final move to pull you back under their control. And this final tactic is something many people miss. It is not always an obvious attack. Sometimes it looks like an apology, a sudden change, or even vulnerability. But underneath it may be a desperate attempt to regain the power they feel slipping away. Have you ever noticed that the moment you stopped chasing, stopped explaining, and started protecting your peace, their behavior suddenly changed? Maybe they became kinder. Maybe they acted hurt. Maybe they brought up old memories or made you question whether you were being too harsh. Stay with me, because understanding this pattern can help you recognize the difference between genuine change and another attempt to pull you back into the same cycle. Before we continue, take a moment and ask yourself, have you ever felt like someone only changed when they realized they were losing control of you? Share your experience in the comments, because sometimes recognizing the pattern is the first step toward breaking it. The moment a narcissistic person realizes they can no longer control you is often a turning point in the relationship dynamic. For a long time, they may have relied on certain patterns to influence your emotions, getting you to defend yourself, seek their approval, explain your feelings repeatedly, or question your own decisions. Their sense of power often comes from knowing they can trigger a reaction from you. When you begin to step away from that pattern, something changes. Your calmness becomes unfamiliar to them. Your silence is no longer a sign that you are losing. It becomes a sign that you are becoming emotionally independent. When you stop arguing every accusation, stop trying to convince them to understand your pain, and stop looking to them for validation, they may feel as though they are losing access to the control they once had. This is why your growth can sometimes create a stronger reaction from someone who benefited from your self-doubt. They may not be responding to the loss of the relationship itself. They may be responding to the loss of influence. The person they could once provoke, confuse, or manipulate is becoming someone who trusts their own judgment. A strong person does not mean someone who never feels hurt. Strength means recognizing your emotions without allowing another person to use those emotions as a weapon against you. It means understanding that peace is more valuable than winning every argument, and that your worth does not depend on someone else's ability to recognize it. When a narcissistic person sees that you are no longer controlled by fear, guilt, or the need for their approval, they may realize their old strategies are failing, and that realization can push them to try new ways of regaining control. The most powerful shift happens when you understand that your strength was never about defeating them. It was about finally returning to yourself. When manipulation stops working, one of the most common tactics a narcissistic person may use is trying to make you doubt yourself. This is because confidence and self-trust are powerful forms of protection. When you clearly see your own reality, it becomes much harder for someone else to reshape it for their benefit. A person with narcissistic traits may attempt to create confusion by denying things they previously said or did, minimizing your feelings, or suggesting that you are overreacting. They may tell you that you are too sensitive, that you misunderstood the situation, or that you are the reason the relationship became difficult. The purpose of these behaviors is often to shift your attention away from their actions and toward questioning your own perception. This can be deeply unsettling because many empathetic people naturally reflect on themselves. They ask, could I have handled this differently? Or, am I being unfair? Self-reflection is healthy, but when someone repeatedly pushes you into constant self-doubt, it can become a way of keeping you emotionally stuck. The important change happens when you stop measuring your reality through someone else's reactions. You begin to recognize patterns instead of isolated incidents. You notice that every conversation does not have to end with you apologizing, explaining, or proving your intentions. You understand that disagreement does not automatically mean you are wrong. A person who wants genuine connection will usually be willing to listen, take responsibility, and work toward understanding. Someone focused on maintaining control may instead focus on making you feel uncertain about yourself. The final goal of this tactic is not always to convince you of a specific lie. Sometimes it is simply to make you lose confidence in your own judgment, because when you stop trusting yourself, you become more likely to seek answers from the very person who created the confusion. Your strength grows when you remember that clarity does not come from constantly defending yourself. It comes from trusting your experiences, honoring your boundaries, and refusing to abandon yourself just to keep someone else comfortable. A common reaction from a narcissistic person when they feel their control slipping away is to shift the focus from their behavior to their own pain. Instead of taking responsibility for the harm they may have caused, they may present themselves as the person who has been hurt, misunderstood, or unfairly treated. This creates a situation where you suddenly find yourself defending your actions instead of addressing the original problem. This role reversal can be confusing because many compassionate people naturally want to comfort someone who appears to be suffering. When you see someone you care about expressing sadness, disappointment, or pain, your instinct may be to listen, apologize, or try to repair the situation. But this is where the pattern can become unhealthy. Your compassion may be redirected away from your own needs and toward managing their emotions. A narcissistic person may say things that make you question your choices. After everything I did for you, this is how you treat me? Or, you are the one who changed. The conversation becomes centered around their feelings, while your experiences, concerns, or boundaries are ignored. Slowly, you may find yourself trying to prove that you are not a bad person rather than asking whether your needs are being respected. This tactic is powerful because it targets your sense of empathy. If you are someone who cares deeply, you may feel responsible for making them feel better, even when you are the one who was hurt. But understanding another person's emotions does not mean accepting blame for their actions. Healthy relationships allow both people to express pain, take accountability, and work toward understanding. A relationship cannot heal when one person constantly becomes the victim and the other person is always forced into the role of the offender. The moment you stop rushing to rescue someone from the consequences of their own behavior, you create space to see the situation clearly. Real strength comes from having compassion without abandoning yourself and caring about someone without allowing their emotions to control your reality. When a narcissistic person notices that you are becoming stronger, one of the ways they may respond is by testing whether your new boundaries are truly permanent. Boundaries represent a loss of control for someone who is used to having access to your time, emotions, attention, or forgiveness whenever they want it. Your ability to say no changes the entire dynamic, and that change may be uncomfortable for them. At first, they may not directly challenge your boundary. Instead, they might look for small openings. They may bring up old memories, remind you of everything they have done for you, or create a situation where you feel guilty for protecting yourself. They are often looking to see whether your words match your actions. If you say you need distance but quickly return every time they become upset, they may learn that pressure still works. Sometimes the test appears through emotional reactions. They may become angry because you are no longer responding the way you used to. They may give you the silent treatment, withdraw affection, or suddenly become extremely charming and caring. These changes can create confusion because you may wonder whether they have finally understood your feelings. But the important question is not whether someone can act differently for a short period of time. The question is whether they can consistently respect your boundaries without trying to punish you for having them. A healthy person may feel disappointed by your limits, but they will still respect your right to have them. Someone focused on control may see your boundaries as a challenge that needs to be overcome. The strongest response is not proving that you are stronger than them. It is remaining consistent with yourself. You do not have to argue, defend every decision, or convince someone that your boundaries are valid. Your peace does not require their permission. When your boundaries become firm, you send a powerful message. Your kindness is a choice, not an invitation for someone to cross your limits. And when someone realizes they can no longer move you through guilt, pressure, or fear, your strength becomes impossible to ignore. Strong people are often targeted through their compassion because empathy is one of the most valuable qualities a person can have. When you naturally care about others, you may look beyond someone's mistakes and focus on their pain, their struggles, or the possibility that they can change. This ability to see the humanity in others is a beautiful quality, but in an unhealthy dynamic, it can also become something someone tries to use for their own benefit. When a narcissistic person senses that they are losing influence over you, they may try to reconnect with the part of you that wants to help. They may suddenly talk about their difficult past, their regrets, their fears, or the reasons behind their behavior. They may make promises that things will be different, or create moments where you feel that leaving them means abandoning someone who needs you. The challenge is that empathy without boundaries can become self-sacrifice. You may begin carrying the responsibility for their emotions, their healing, and their personal growth while ignoring your own exhaustion. You start asking, "How can I help them?" instead of asking, "Is this relationship healthy for me?" A person's pain can be real, but their pain does not excuse the way they treat others. Understanding why someone behaves a certain way does not mean you have to accept repeated disrespect, manipulation, or emotional harm. Compassion should allow you to see someone's struggles, but it should not require you to lose yourself in the process. This is where emotional strength develops. You learn that you can care about someone and still choose distance. You can wish someone healing without becoming responsible for fixing them. You can acknowledge their wounds without allowing those wounds to become a reason for hurting you. The most powerful shift happens when you realize that your kindness is not measured by how much pain you can tolerate. True compassion includes compassion for yourself. When you stop allowing your empathy to be used as a doorway back into the same harmful patterns, you protect the very part of yourself that makes you strong. When a narcissistic person realizes they are losing their influence over you, one of the final strategies they may use is attacking your confidence. This is because your self-belief is the foundation of your independence. When you trust yourself, make your own decisions, and stop depending on their approval, their ability to control the relationship becomes much weaker. A person who relies on control may begin criticizing the very qualities that make you stronger. They may question your choices, judge your growth, or suggest that you are becoming selfish, difficult, or different. They may try to convince you that the version of yourself you are becoming is somehow wrong. The goal is often to make you return to the version of yourself that was easier for them to influence. This tactic can be especially painful because it comes from someone whose opinion may have once mattered deeply to you. When someone repeatedly tells you that you are the problem, it can create an internal conflict. You may start wondering whether your boundaries are too harsh, whether your expectations are unrealistic, or whether you should go back to keeping the peace. But confidence does not come from everyone agreeing with you. Confidence comes from knowing your values, understanding your intentions, and being willing to stand by what you know is right for yourself. Someone disagreeing with your growth does not mean your growth is wrong. A healthy connection allows both people to evolve. The people who genuinely care about you will want to see you become stronger, more confident, and more fulfilled. They may challenge you, but they will not try to destroy your sense of self to make themselves feel powerful. The moment you stop seeking validation from someone who constantly diminishes you, their words begin to lose their control over you. You no longer measure your worth through their approval or criticism. Your strength is not found in convincing someone else that you deserve respect. Your strength comes from recognizing that respect was always something you deserved. And when you protect your confidence, you protect the part of yourself that manipulation can never truly take away. The greatest protection against manipulation is not having the perfect response, winning every argument, or proving that you are right. It is learning how to remain calm when someone is trying to pull you into emotional chaos. A narcissistic person often gains power through reactions. They may look for anger, fear, guilt, or desperation because strong emotional responses can make you easier to influence. When you stop reacting the way they expect, the entire dynamic begins to change. Instead of immediately defending yourself, explaining every detail, or trying to make them understand your perspective, you begin to observe. You recognize the pattern instead of getting trapped inside the moment. This emotional distance allows you to make decisions from clarity rather than from pressure. A calm response does not mean that you do not care. It does not mean you are ignoring your feelings or pretending that something did not hurt you. It means you are choosing not to hand someone else control over your emotional state. Your emotions belong to you, and you decide how they are expressed. Many people become exhausted because they spend years trying to prove their intentions to someone who has already decided to misunderstand them. They explain more, give more chances, and search for the perfect words that will finally create understanding. But when someone is committed to control rather than connection, more explanations often create more opportunities for conflict. Your peace becomes powerful when you stop entering every battle you are invited into. You learn that not every accusation requires a defense, not every criticism requires an answer, and not every emotional reaction from another person requires your immediate attention. The shift happens when you realize that your calmness is not weakness. It is evidence that you have reclaimed control over yourself. The person who once could disturb your entire emotional world no longer has that same power. True strength is not about becoming cold or unfeeling. It is about becoming grounded enough that someone else's attempts to create confusion cannot steal your sense of stability. When your peace becomes your priority, manipulation loses the environment it needs to survive. The final stage of becoming stronger after dealing with a narcissistic person is realizing that your victory does not depend on them changing, apologizing, or finally understanding what they did. Many people remain emotionally connected to painful situations because they are waiting for the other person to acknowledge their hurt. They want an explanation, a moment of accountability, or proof that their experience was real. But true freedom begins when you stop placing your healing in someone else's hands. A narcissistic person may never provide the validation you hoped for because accepting responsibility would require them to confront parts of themselves they may avoid. If your peace depends on receiving something they may never give, you remain connected to the very dynamic that caused your pain. Choosing yourself means accepting your own reality without needing someone else's approval. It means trusting the lessons you learned, honoring the boundaries you created, and recognizing that your worth was never determined by how someone treated you. Another person's inability to appreciate your value does not reduce that value. This does not mean becoming bitter or filled with anger. It means releasing the need to convince someone of your importance. You no longer chase closure from someone who repeatedly created confusion. You create closure by understanding yourself. The strongest transformation happens when you stop asking, "Why did they treat me this way?" and begin asking, "What do I need to do to protect my peace moving forward?" That shift brings your attention back to where it belongs, with your own growth, your own healing, and your own future. A person who once had power over your emotions loses that power when you no longer need their recognition to feel whole. You can care about what happened while still choosing to move forward. You can remember the experience without allowing it to define you. The ultimate strength is not proving that you were right. It is reaching a place where your happiness no longer depends on whether they agree. When you choose yourself, you reclaim the one thing manipulation tries hardest to take away: your connection with your own identity. The moment a narcissistic person realizes you are truly strong, the entire dynamic begins to change. The tactics that once worked, the guilt, the confusion, the emotional pressure, the need to explain yourself, begin to lose their power. And this is often when they may attempt their final efforts to regain control. They may try to make you question yourself, turn themselves into the victim, test your boundaries, use your compassion, or attack your confidence. But these tactics only work when you forget who you are. The moment you begin trusting your own reality, protecting your peace, and standing firmly in your worth, their ability to control your emotions starts to disappear. Remember, strength is not about becoming someone who cannot be hurt. Strength is about becoming someone who can feel deeply without allowing another person to manipulate those feelings. It is about having compassion without sacrificing yourself, offering kindness without abandoning your boundaries, and loving others without losing your connection with yourself. You do not need to convince someone of your value. You do not need to fight every accusation, answer every criticism, or prove your intentions to someone committed to misunderstanding you. Your peace is the evidence that you have reclaimed your power. The greatest transformation happens when you stop waiting for someone else to validate your experience and start trusting your own wisdom. The person who once controlled your emotions no longer has that influence when you choose yourself first. Because the strongest response to manipulation is not revenge, anger, or proving that you can survive without them. The strongest response is becoming so secure in yourself that their attempts to break your confidence no longer reach you. And that is the moment you become truly free. Not because they changed, but because you did.